what's up? Sanisa, Super Bad Estrada here, and I just want to give a huge special shout out to the Relay. Thank you so much for all of the continuous support, and thank you for all of the support during and after and before every single fight.
Welcome to the motherfucking Relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Late next month, on the 30th, Amy Timlin is supposed to be making her long-awaited, long-anticipated ring return.
I vaguely recall an announcement made 4 months ago for a fight date in April.
An announcement made by way of Amy Timlin's social media where she announced that she would be returning in April and she would be returning at a new weight. Up until that point, Amy Timlin had been campaigning between bantamweight and super bantamweight, and I can only deduce that the new weight she was talking about must have been upstairs at featherweight.
And that fight must have fell through because Amy Timlin's still coming off that loss to Mary Romero.
Whatever plans they must have had for April, well, they must have gotten scrapped, and now she's set to return to action later on next month on the 30th against an opponent that is yet to be announced. No idea what weight.
Don't know at what weight the contest is taking place.
Or who it is that Amy Timlin will be fighting. What I will say is that Amy Timlin is your, according to Hoyle, pure boxer. Your outside jabber.
She came up against two pressure fighters in Carly Skelly and Mary Romero.
It's not a coincidence that Amy Timlin, in many ways, struggled with both. One more than the other, as one of these pressure fighters is a lot more experienced than the other, was, I should say. Mary Romero gave Amy Timlin her first professional loss, and it's not a coincidence. A pressure fighter tends to have a stylistic advantage over a pure boxer.
It's the volume, it's the activity.
The pure boxer wants to fight a slow, controlled fight. They want the time, the room, the real estate to pick their shots.
Whilst being defensively responsible.
Fighting at a safe distance, only putting together 1 or 2 shots at a time, as the pure boxer is a characteristically economic fighter. The pressure fighter, they're the exact opposite. Where the pure boxer wants to stay on the outside, the pressure fighter wants to crowd the pocket, get mid-range to inside. Where the pure boxer doesn't put a lot of shots out there, they're characteristically economic. The pressure fighter is the exact opposite. They throw punches in bunches.
Where the pure boxer wants to fight a cerebral kind of fight.
The pressure fighter wants to make things physical. They want to make things rough and tumble. It's for this reason that pressure fighters tend to have a stylistic advantage over pure boxers. And I don't know what Amy Timlin's been working on since that Mary Romero fight. I don't know if she's...
Unless something about her base style changes, that's always going to be her Achilles heel.
As that is the bane of the pure boxer. They're defensively astute enough to outwit and outthink that boxer puncher, but that pressure fighter, that's their kryptonite, and that will continue to be Amy Timlin's kryptonite unless something changes. She's young enough, has enough time.
Yeah, she's only 22 years old.
To work on things and perhaps develop a little bit more spite, a little bit more mid-range to inside game, handle herself in the phone booth, learn to
handle herself better so she's not overwhelmed.
For now, keep your eyes peeled for the ring return of Amy Timlin late next month on the 30th. In men's heavyweight news, yesterday it was revealed that boxers Ben Shalom stated they've approached Frank Warren and offered Joe Joyce £1.2 million to fight Joseph Parker on Sky Sports pay-per-view next.
Few thoughts on this.
I've got nothing against Joe Joyce as a fighter. He's an exciting guy to watch, entertaining, comes from a good amateur background, good pedigree, but he doesn't yet have the marquee value of a Dillian White. The drawing power, you understand. So if you put a fight like that on pay-per-view, what's it really going to do? I think that's a legitimate question, even on the Sky Sports platform.
Which is a major platform.
How attractive is a fight like that to the consumer when it comes with a pay-per-view cover charge, with that price tag?
Granted that a pay-per-view in the UK costs a lot less than one in the US.
The Brits aren't in any more hurry to throw their money away for a fight they weren't asking for than the Americans are.
Not everything you put on pay-per-view is going to sell.
But that's the story. That Ben Shalom has offered Joe Joyce a little over $1 million to take on Joseph Parker, who he was supposed to be fighting anyway up until recently.
Up until news broke that Joseph Parker had entered a multi-fight deal with Sky Sports and Boxer.
That's what Frank Warren's plan was. Frank Warren, who reacted to that news of Ben Shalom offering Joe Joyce a little over $1 million.
Frank reacted to that news.
Frank Warren, by way of his social media, or whoever it is that handles his social media account, they reacted by saying how to not make a fight. 1, get everything you want in a contract and then don't sign it. 2, sign with a broadcaster that the guy you want doesn't box on. 3, make face-saving public offer for a fight.
For a fight you know now can't happen.
Welcome to Ben Shalom's first rodeo. Ben Shalom, the new kid on the block in many ways, as both Matchroom and Queensbury are more established outfits than Boxer is.
What Ben seems to want is for Joe to cross over.
He wants to do the fight on Sky. In theory, unless Frank Warren has something better lined up for Joe Joyce that would get him more money than what Ben Shalom is offering him. Unless Frank can offer Joe Joyce something better, in theory, there's no reason for Joe not to cross over.
If you don't have anything better to offer him, you might as well let him go over there and make that money.
Joe Joyce is supposed to be returning to action very soon against Christian Hammer in what is a keep busy fight. Thus, the Joseph Parker fight would have to be a fight that takes place in either the fall or winter months. And it just so happens that Joe Joyce's name has been attached to Tyson Fury. That's right. That's what Bob Arum and Frank Warren are talking about. They're talking about a Joe Joyce versus Tyson Fury fight at Wembley.
So maybe they do have something better to offer Joe than a Joseph Parker fight.
But it really all depends as to whether or not Tyson Fury himself is receptive to such a fight. Whether or not Tyson Fury himself is receptive to such a match. Very recently, he was asked what it would take to get him out of retirement, and he said,
I think he said it would take $500 million.
well, you're not going to make $500 million boxing Joe Joyce, so let's just get that right out of the way. And essentially what I'm getting at is whether or not
It's not likely that Joe Joyce takes up Ben Shalom on his offer.
It's not likely he's going to cross over to box on Sky, even in a one-off situation. And because it isn't, the question then becomes, is it wise?
Is it wise not to capitalize on this opportunity? Because I actually like Joe Joyce's chances against Joseph Parker.
I do. From where I'm sitting, a Joseph Parker fight is a much more winnable fight than a Tyson Fury fight, assuming a Tyson Fury fight even happens. Now, a Tyson Fury fight would definitely get Joe Joyce more money than a Joseph Parker fight, but a Tyson Fury fight has to happen, and therein lies the dilemma. It's not a guarantee that Joe Joyce gets a shot at that guy.
Can Frank Warren really deliver Joe that fight?
If he can, then it would make sense to reject Ben Shalom's offer, as a fight with Tyson Fury would help Joe Joyce get at more money and a world title. It'd be a world title shot, a world title opportunity. But that's only if he can actually deliver Joe Tyson Fury.
If he can't, then he just wasted Joe Joyce's time and squandered an opportunity.
It's a story that only time can tell. We don't know here and now if this is the right move or the wrong one.
Joe Joyce is ranked pretty high by way of the WBO.
He is in a pole position to become the mandatory challenger for the winner of Joshua versus Usyk 2. And I'm not hearing much movement on that front from either Joe Joyce or Frank Warren about pinning down the winner of that fight. Perhaps it's because
Depending on who wins that fight, that would require Joe to go over there to Matchroom and DAZN.
Frank doesn't want Joe to go to Matchroom and DAZN any more than he wants him to go to Sky Sports and Boxer.
Frank's always had a way with WBO, and he can put the squeeze on them to order the fight.
But if he does, depending on who the winner of that fight is, that might require Joe to cross over to Matchroom and DAZN. And I reiterate, Frank don't want Joe to cross over to Matchroom and DAZN any more than he wants him to cross over to Sky Sports and Boxer. Perhaps that's why we're hearing more about Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker, or Joe Joyce versus Tyson Fury.
Perhaps that's why we're hearing more about Joe fighting those guys as opposed to fighting the winner of Joshua versus Usyk.
I don't know how this cookie's gonna crumble. Once again, it's a story that only time can tell as to whether or not rejecting this offer from Ben Shalom is the right move. It all depends on what Joe ends up doing in the fall. If he does get Tyson Fury,
A Tyson Fury fight's bigger than a Joseph Parker fight.
yeah, if he can actually get him in the ring. But therein lies the dilemma. Does he get him in the ring? Because if he doesn't, then all of this was just a massive waste of time. And Joe Joyce is no spring chicken. This guy's in his mid-30s.
Time is of the essence.
He doesn't have time to waste. And just in keeping with the theme of men's heavyweight news and what are mismanaged careers, Adam Kownacki is set to take on Ali Demirezen Saturday, July 30th, late next month. And you know, he rejected an offer to take on Derek Chisora in the United Kingdom for this. The offer was reportedly a 7-figure offer.
Likely just north of $1 million.
Will Adam Kownacki, who has a family to feed, make just north of $1 million fighting Ali Demirezen at the Barclays Center?
No.
I don't think so.
Neither Adam Kownacki or Ali Demirezen generate that kind of revenue.
To where Adam Kownacki gets 7 figures for that fight, whereas Derek Chisora, losses in the double digits and all, he still has a cult following in the United Kingdom.
You're talking about a guy who's coming off of back-to-back losses.
But he still sells tickets. A more ideal fight for Adam Kownacki, a more ideal rebound fight. I defy you to come up with one. A fight where he's facing a guy who's coming off consecutive losses the same way he is, but he stands to make
7 figures fighting him.
I think that Adam's people once again have shot themselves in the foot. That's what I think. We've often talked about the offer they received to take on Anthony Joshua, a multi-million-dollar offer that would have resulted in a multi-million-dollar purse had Adam won the fight or lost the fight. An opportunity to fight for 3 of the 4 major alphabet titles in the heavyweight division. They immediately took themselves out of the running for that fight so that they could save the date on FS1.
For what ended up being a Chris Arreola fight.
Now, do you need me to tell you that he didn't make fighting Chris Arreola what he could have made fighting Anthony Joshua? Do you really need me to tell you that?
Here and now, do you need me to tell you that you don't get paid for fighting Ali Demirezen what you could have got paid fighting Derek Chisora?
A fighter's career can get caught in the crossfire of warring factions, warring promotional outfits, competing platforms. That's what we're seeing.
Adam's career is caught in the crossfire of the PBC and Matchroom.
There really are better opportunities for him over there on the Matchroom side of things that would help him get at more money faster than the promises he's being made over there at the PBC. And I have no doubts that they are making promises, empty ones.
This is just me bouncing ideas around.
The way I see it, the only way you can rationalize, reconcile, turning down a 7-figure price, a 7-figure payday to fight a guy that's coming off of 2 back-to-back losses, who's an aging fighter, the only way you can reconcile turning down an ideal situation like that to take on Ali Demirezen is...
Maybe they promised Adam Kownacki Wilder if he wins.
Deontay Wilder hasn't announced his retirement, officially, you understand. There is some hubbub over a potential comeback fight, even if a comeback fight has not yet been scheduled or announced. Maybe the reason Adam turned down Derek is because he's expecting to get a bigger fight with Deontay Wilder for a bigger purse. And this is just a prelude to that fight. Maybe that's what they promised him. Or maybe they promised him the winner of Luis Ortiz versus Andy Ruiz.
This is just me bouncing ideas around, but I get the sense that they must have promised him something.
Because he really would have made more money boxing Derek Chisora in the UK than taking on Ali Demirezen in the US at the Barclays Center. It goes without saying, Derek Chisora, losses in the double digits and all, journeyman and all, he draws better than Adam Kownacki and Ali Demirezen. He can get you 7 figures.
As a result of Adam not accepting the offer, Derek's gonna fight Kubrat Pulev again.
Adam's fighting this guy, and I'd wager he's got to make it through this guy to get at whatever he was promised, whether it's a Wilder fight or a fight with the winner of Ruiz versus Ortiz, and therein lies a dilemma. It's not a foregone conclusion that a fighter who's taken 2 back-to-back beatings like Adam has, it's not a foregone conclusion that he wins if he falters.
That'll be yet another boneheaded move from his team.
You go to the UK, you lose to Derek Chisora, or you stay in the US and you potentially lose to Ali Demirezen. Only one of those fights is going to get you 7 figures. You go to the UK, you win. You go to the UK, you lose. Either way, you get 7 figures.
What are they going to pay this guy for staying here and fighting Ali Demirezen?
What could have made that a more attractive option for Adam Kownacki than a Derek Chisora fight? And I'd wager that he was made some promises. Finally, Conroy.
It's Conor.
Conor McGregor posted this image via his social media with a caption that reads, "I accept." And the image is an image of Conroy connecting with a body shot on Floyd Mayweather way back when, several years ago, for what was their crossover fight, their novelty fight.
What is it that he's accepting?
Was he offered something? At this time, Fight Hype reports that both Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather are in the midst of negotiations for a rematch, a second fight. This is coming at a time when Floyd Mayweather already has an upcoming exhibition match in the books over there in the land of the rising sun in Japan against Asakura, who we talked about here on the channel. Floyd already had an exhibition match earlier this year. Don Moore, his old sparring partner over there in Abu Dhabi.
That's one.
Tack on the Asakura exhibition match and a potential Conor McGregor rematch, and that makes 3 3 fights. Fight Hype via their sources state that Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor are currently in talks for a potential rematch. If it happens, expect Mayweather to pocket another 9-figure payday. Another 9-figure payday?
Oh.
Does the second fight between them yield the same interest and the same fan participation that the first fight did?
That crossover fight between them was built up over some years.
It's not something they just decided to do on a whim. It's not just a decision they came to overnight. Floyd Mayweather himself claims to make a staggering $300 million per month.
Why does it feel like he's scrambling to schedule exhibition matches?
Exhibition matches and novelty fights. Why are we hearing that they're revisiting the Conor McGregor fight if he makes a staggering $300 million per month, which rounds out to about $3.6 billion a year?
Because of all the smart investments he's made.
A guy making $300 million a month, I think, has no need to participate in exhibition matches with old sparring partners like Don Moore or guys in the Far East like Asakura.
A guy making $300 million a month on smart investments has no need to afford Conor another opportunity.
I mean, if Floyd were going to revisit a second fight, a rematch situation, a rematch with anybody, one would assume that the rematch he revisits would be the Manny Pacquiao fight, a Manny Pacquiao rematch. There might still be some interest in association with that because the appeal of Maymac.
You already knocked that guy out. What are you doing a second fight with him for?
To my team, my guys in New York, and my other real estate team that's here today. We can't be stopped. In 32 months, I put myself in a position with a smart business team to make $300 million a month.
But you're revisiting a Conor McGregor fight.
Floyd's reported to own a couple of skyscrapers in downtown Manhattan. That's the story. And I guess according to Floyd, he's making a killing.
But he's putting on dreadful shows with YouTubers.
Sparring old sparring partners in Abu Dhabi. Flying out to Japan to lock horns with some guy. And now they're talking about revisiting a Conor McGregor fight.
Right.
Talking about staging a Conor McGregor rematch. Pardon me for saying so.
It just feels like he's scrambling. Like he's scrambling to schedule events.
And everybody's already familiar with Floyd's career earnings, so why does he feel the need to assert himself so publicly?
Why are you announcing to the world that you make $300 million a month?
Which really does round out to about $3.6 billion a year. If you are making $300 million a month, which is an estimated $3.6 billion a year, where do you rank on the Forbes list? Because, a guy with a profile like Floyd's making that kind of money, well, it doesn't fly under the radar.
You make $300 million a month and you're selling gel blasters.
And love windows. Pardon my skepticism, but I feel like there's more going on here than meets the eye. There might be. The proposition of a second Conor McGregor fight, a second crossover fight, I don't think the second fight will yield the same return, have the same appeal that the first fight did.
It's not your regular run-of-the-mill rematch in the sport of boxing or mixed martial arts.
To where the first fight's aesthetic was so good, you'd want to see it for a second time, maybe even a third. No, this was a novelty fight, and the appeal was just getting both these boys in the ring to see what would happen. We've seen that already.
This was a novelty fight, not a regular boxing match.
Forgive me for saying so, that the whole thing feels bizarre.